So, thanks everybody for joining our live event. We're gonna start really soon. So since we already passed the hour, we will be kicking it off just in a short while. We just get the last attendees in for a live event. So let's go and start so we don't waste a lot of your time. We just talked about doing live event. We have now done so many live events for the past month that it's almost like a daily routine that we need to do a new live event. And we are just talking about that before we started off with getting into the live event around 15 or at least 15 minutes before the live event. But now we're so used to doing the live events that we just jump into our office and then kick off our live events. But hopefully, since we've done like a lot of live events, hopefully you enjoy it. Like a normal live event, you will see that you will be able to ask a lot of questions during the live event. So please use the Q&A panel, and then we will be able to give you the answers on your question. Hopefully, if it's related to the things that we talk about right now, we try to interact and ask the questions during the live event. And if that's not possible, we're going to do the questioning in the end instead. So thanks a lot for joining. My name is Lars Berlau. I'm based in Denmark, working out of the Tech Data office in Copenhagen. I have been working with Microsoft for the past 5 years, ever since we launched the Surface Hub 1. And now I'm primarily focused on the Microsoft Teams rooms as a part of Microsoft Disney Champ program. Today, I'm companioned by Robert Karlsson, who is the partner technical specialist. So I'm doing the short introduction to this live event, and then I'll hand it over to Robert. So today we're going to talk about why should we use Microsoft Teams rooms instead of a bring your own device meeting room. So we're gonna look at the benefits of installing a Microsoft Teams rooms instead of having this options of just bringing your own PC to use in the meeting. So back in the days before we had the Microsoft Teams rooms, we saw a lot of installations with simply webcam and a lot of cables and adapters on the tables, and it was in most cases a complete mess. And even though we try to ask those who installed it that they should use like the same equipment in all the meeting rooms, people didn't really want to throw out all the old equipment. So it was like a different experience from all the users coming into a meeting room. And with the issues about, is it an HDMI or is it a mini display port or now a USB-C connector, there was like a lot of mess about the cabling, and it never really worked really well. So looking at using your own PC, you will then have the experience of, is it really connecting to the right camera? Is it connecting to the right microphone and speakers? And it could be a mess if people is not really technical funded in the mindset. So looking forward, when we had the first Skype room systems and now the Teams rooms, we kind of have this experience where the people can actually be focused on their meetings and what they're gonna talk about in the meetings. And then when they enter a meeting room, they will simply be able just to hit the join button, and then the meeting will start with the correct mounted microphone, speakers, and camera. So let's hand it over to Robert. So Robert, thanks for joining today. We know it's a Nordic webinar, but we are still doing this in English. So, and I know that we actually have participants from even South Africa. I saw somebody signed up for, so it's we got a large audience. So let's hand it over to Robert. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Lars, and thank you for having me. and of course very exciting to have people from other places perhaps than the Nordics. So let's continue with the English then. My name is Robert Karlsson. I'm doing the technical or partner technical specialist role, which means that I'm helping our partners and our DISTI champs with everything around Teams rooms, Teams devices. I think I have an echo from Lars perhaps. But we continue. So I help the partners of doing everything around Teams rooms and Teams devices, so that we could be very well educated and feel confident to talk to our customers and help them with their Teams journey. So I think it's important that we start with talking about why there's a difference and how this pandemic, these like 12 to 13 months, have changed the way that we see our offices and our work today, because I think that is what has changed this scene so dramatically and so fast. So the pandemic has really accelerated the revolution of the workplace. And being with Microsoft, and I guess a lot of other companies as well, we have seen work as not a place to be, but something that you do. I think, Lars, you phrased that very good the other day around being in your car and having the meeting with myself on Friday, because we have the tools, we have the means to be able to work wherever we would like to. Sometimes it's a good place, sometimes we do it just because we need to take that call on that specific location. But sometimes we just choose to be in a place because it feels the right place to be at the moment. So I think we will see that much more, and this has surely accelerated through these last 12 to 13 months. So we still need to take into consideration what will happen when coming back, because during this pandemic we have started to work from a distance. We have started to work in a hybrid mode when most of the people who is based in offices are working from home. And a lot of people then have got used to the tools and the way to do like Teams meetings or other platforms meetings as a standard solution. You don't book a meeting with a room, you book a meeting with a link to enter that meeting. And I think that is something that we need to take into consideration. And if we then think about it in another way, we can say that we as an organization, we have to think, and we have done a lot of work on how to respond to the new ways of working, depending on what are the rules at the moment. What are we saying from a health perspective in my region, in my country, and how do we have to adapt to that? And then at the same time, we have to also plan to what would we like to have as a collaboration and communication means when coming back to the office. What is the way that we would like to continue to do this? And also to have the focus on the strategy. How will this take us into the future? What we do today, how will that then be the way how we scale our connections, our communications, our collaboration into the next generation? So I think we have to have an open mind and to keep short and mid and long-term strategies in the same time so that we work with it. And I think that is what we see when we talk about the workplace as a hybrid workplace, and the future is hybrid, because we need to have solutions and technical platforms that supports collaborative ideation. What that means is that if I go to the office, I need to have some space, physical space. I need to have the tools to be able to work with both the people who is in the office and also the people who still are doing home offices or doing a remote office in some sort. So we have to have technical tools, and we also have to adapt how we work. And I think that is what we're building a lot into the Teams platform and into the devices that we have. So having a Teams room solution will bring the best from the hardware manufacturer, from the Teams platform, and from the combination of that and the software that we can then provide together with the vendor, which means that we will give even more features and functions that will support this collaborative ideation. And of course, we also have to think about how are we supporting the rooms? How are we building them? Do we need more open spaces, for instance, to have collaborative sessions in the office? Because people would like to do that type of work when coming in and do perhaps more routine work staying at home. So I think also we have to take into consideration what we would like to do when being in the office. So this is the setting that we're in. We have seen this change. Satya Nadella, our CIO, talked about we have seen this change in a few months that would take us years in a normal way to adapt to. This is the point in time, I would say, where we also have started to think about coming back, because coming back is quite near. We have to plan for it, but we're still in this homeschooling and home office solutions for many of us. So I think this is the right time to think about this. And just moving on to, okay, what's the devices? How do we see it? And then moving on to why Teams rooms as an option before bringing your own device. All the devices that we have, everything that we're doing that is Teams certified, have to be compiled to 4 pillars of how to say, functions and features and guidance. So the first thing is that a Teams device has to give a familiar experience, no matter if it's a Teams room or if it's a personal device as a Teams phone or a headset. It should be obvious that it's a part of the Teams family, Teams device family, and it's something that I, as a user, feel confident to use. So for instance, a headset has the Teams button now, which means that I can interact with the hardware and the software doing things with that Teams button. We can also have lighting on the headsets, which means that I will intuitively know if I have a missed call, or I can show for my peers around me that I'm in a call. So bringing that on to the devices that we have, for instance, in the meeting rooms, is also to have very easy to use, very simple solutions, but yet very powerful. So that it's easy for the employee to come into the room to understand that, okay, this is a join button here. I press that, I start my meeting. And that is that intuitive way to do it. And then I will have the 3 to 5 second experience of the meeting just starting up, everything connects, and then we're good to go. It should also be inclusive, which means that we are doing this in that way that we are helping the users. So for instance, when plugging in a peripheral into your PC, you will then have a welcome screen saying, okay, this is a Teams certified device, you will have these features, this is how you do it. So we know about it and we take care about the experience. It's a quality stamp, which means that Teams certified devices and vendors, they have gone through a very extensive testing and a matrix of what type of solution do I want to be certified for? For instance, a small meeting room, a large meeting room, or whatever, which means that when looking at this, you will know as a partner or as an end customer that this is a device that we can trust and we can use in a good manner in a Teams environment. And lastly, the Teams devices should be taken care of in a good way. We could then use Teams Admin Center to be able to handle them and to work with them in a consistent way so that we can see the health of a room, we can update and we can manage it. And this is something that we are building onto, and we have a good foundation of a set of features that we can utilize in that Teams Admin Center. So Teams Admin Center is the place to be when taking care of your equipment. And just moving on then, and this is not a focus for this meeting, but we have the peripherals. It's very important that we can work with certified devices for personal use or for use in the office. And then you can say that the Surface Hub here on the right, it's a mix of we have seen it being, well, I know one person in this call who might have a Surface Hub in his home office. So we've seen that as a fact, because it has been a way to support a good experience, and also for perhaps for some people to be able to show and to talk about these devices in a good way, not being in the offices. But of course, it might be that the Surface Hub as a product is more of an office product, but it's a very good PC to have at home, I would say, Lars. Moving on to the meeting rooms. We have two versions of devices. The first one is what we call Microsoft Teams rooms. And you might recall 1 year ago that we divided this into actually two sorts. So we had Microsoft Teams rooms, and we talked about collaboration bars. But now the way that we phrase is that we have two product lines within Microsoft Teams rooms. One is based out of Windows and one is based out of Android. But we talk about it as Microsoft Teams rooms because that is the promise that we have to you as an end user and as a corporation, that this will bring a simple use experience. It will be manageable from Teams Admin Center. You will have, you will have a tool set of features and functions that is very much alike no matter if you go for the Windows track or the Android track. And then we have the Microsoft Surface Hub 2S in two different sizes. That is also very good to have Teams meetings and to place in your meeting rooms. When entering a meeting room that is based out of Microsoft Teams rooms, that is the purpose-built solution, which means that I don't have to bring my PC into the room. I could bring myself. I have booked the meeting room, which means that I booked the room, the physical space, but also the device. So when I enter that room, I will have my meeting showing on the screen. It will be very simple to know that I'm in the right room and I had booked this room in beforehand. We have an extensive portfolio of different vendors, so you can choose the vendor that you would like to work with. It's very, very strategic for us to work with rooms from the smallest huddle room to the largest town hall and everything that in between, which means that you could also find some vendor with specific solution and toolkits that then would suit your needs. And as I talked about before, it's very important for us that you as a company or you as a partner have the possibility to also work with these devices in a centralized and a manageable way so that you can work with it from Teams Admin Center, you can see the health, you can do the updates, you can work with the equipment. And if you would like to have help with that, we can also offer the Microsoft Teams Premium service. That's an add-on service, which means that we will then be that partner that takes care of your rooms. We can also do that together with local partners. So you can use your local partner who can then work on behalf of you and together with the premium service take care of the room. Because then you can also have the last mile support with people in the rooms and perhaps doing the most common thing, that is connecting the cable back to the display or to the device that someone has disconnected during a meeting. I'm not sure why that happens though. Talking about the portfolio and not getting into any depth there, we have 7 vendors of Microsoft Teams rooms. You can see them in the middle. They are doing the Windows-based solutions. And then we have the Android-based solutions on the left. That's a very interesting piece, but that's a growing ecosystem of new vendors and new form factors. We can see a lot of things happening there as well. And we position the Android-based solution as a more of a one-stop shop, or you have a very simple setup and it's tailor-made for more or less often the bar solution. So you have a camera, you have a speaker and a microphone in one, which means that it's very easy to just put it on the wall above or below the screen, just connect it and then you're up and running. However, we are also seeing an advancement here with new form factors so that you can continue to build on a strategy on Android-based solutions, but also build it for larger rooms with separate mics and separate speakers and such. So much more is coming there. I think when we talk about the room solutions, we very much also would like to include the wide ecosystem that we have. And when building a room, you could go for one of the vendors that we have, that I showed you just before. But then you can also have your specific needs, like, okay, I would like to use this booking panel. So I have Crestron or I have Yealink doing booking panels for us. Or I would like to use a very specific sound solution for a larger room, so I can really tailor that experience and bring that into like a solution with a BiAmp or QSC or something. So this ecosystem has been growing the last years, so that you can go from the smallest huddle room and into the largest, hall or arena, I'm just losing my voice here because I have a dog biting his squeaky thing behind me. But you can really tailor the solution depending on what type of room you have. So getting back to the initial question, Lars, I would say that why a Teams room instead of a bring your own device is that you can tailor the room. You can have a strategy around it so that you as a company or you as a partner can build your experience from small rooms to large rooms, but you can standardize on a technical solution. You as an end user will always have the opportunity to just book the room, and all the technical equipment will be taken care of. You will have the room booked, you just enter the room, and then you have it. You don't have to bring anything into it. We are also bringing a lot of features to this, and I will go through a few of them very, very shortly, so that you will have things that you can't really do in a bring your own setting than you have in a Teams room. Because if you bring your own device, you will also bring your own meeting into that room, which means that it's my experience, but I'm displaying it to a larger screen and with another set of mics and video and such. And when booking a room solution, it's the room experience that we as a set of users, one or many, then are utilizing in that room. So for instance, talking about what we can do together with a room solution is that we can also add panels. And this is the new sort of device that we have talked about since a few months back. It's a hardware solution, so we have 2 vendors right now doing it. It's Crestron and J-Link. We will have more vendors coming in. The thing here is that it's a Teams app that you build on this hardware. So we are providing a Teams app based out of Android that then could be tailored to have, firstly, you can have visibility into your room. So you see if that room is booked, you can book it, or you can also see other rooms that you have, for instance, on that floor as an example, and you can then book another room. You can also add apps that you have as a company. So for instance, you can have a catering app, or you can have a support app that you can see on this room or this panel. And you can also see that we have a lighting condition saying green or red, for instance, if the room is taken or not. So this room is based, or this panel is based with the room in connection. You don't need your own license for it, because if the room is a Teams room, you have used a Teams room's license, and then you just connect that panel to the same license. So it's the same as having the room equipment. This is just one thing they could add to a Teams room solution, and that it will bring a lot of clarity for the users on the meeting room floor, for instance, seeing what rooms are available, going in front of this panel, seeing if there's any other room available, and just book that from this. We can also show things that we see in the room. So for instance, if we are looking at capacity, we can see if this room has been tailored to have like 6 people. We have designed that into our settings in Teams Admin Center, so we know that we have made a cap of 6 people. If we then have a camera counting the people in the room, seeing that we are 7 people, for instance, we can show that on the panel as well, saying, okay, this room has been at its maximum level of people. You should enter this meeting through your own client instead. So we can also bring that type of features to the panels, so it will also enhance the experience for people. And talking about experiences, we also have this thing of many people being on clients, which means that people have moved into other settings of the room than the room. So we're sitting at home, for instance. I'm then using my client to enter a meeting. Other people are doing the same, and very few people are in the office, which means that we all have the same, more or less the same experience. When moving back to the office, we will then have more people coming in there. We will have, for instance, 3 or 4 people in the room. And this will then affect the ability, for instance, to do transcribing. And transcribing is a new feature that we have launched, which means that I could, if you go to your settings in your Teams client, you can enter transcribe, which means that we will have a text file coming on the right side of the meeting client. This text file is automatically listening to everything that is being said, and it's also connecting that to your client. So we will have Lars, for instance, saying things. We can see Lars talking. We can also see that in the text file afterwards that Lars was saying that, Robert and other people. But the meeting room, we will not know who is in that meeting room. We will not know if it's one or many people. So the transcription afterwards will only say meeting room and then have lines of text. This speaker is an intelligent speaker that we can put into the meeting room. And then we can extract who is saying what. So we will still have the transcription afterwards, and we will have the people who's been talking, even in a room setting. So we will know if Lars and Robert was in the room. We can then extract that and add that to the transcription afterwards. So it's an intelligent speaker. We will compare the voices with a voice pattern that I can then add to my Azure AD account. And then we can use that to know who was speaking and use that as a text file afterwards when getting back to the meeting notes. So we have automatic taking meeting notes. And this is a lot of more features, and I know that Lars will come back to a few of these, but just to show you that there's so much more you can do in a meeting room setting with a Teams room device than you can do, for instance, with a bring your own device. So we have the content camera. That is a camera that you can put on your whiteboard. That means that we can capture what's being written on the whiteboard and project that into the meeting as a video stream. We have the proximity join, which means that I could have my meeting on my phone and I can look for rooms in my office that is available and then just push that meeting into a meeting room device and take that on the device that has better camera, better microphones and such. So there's a lot of things that we can do in meetings with Teams room devices that we really couldn't do with a bring your own device scenario. And lastly, many times when I talk to customers, they say that, but I don't just do Teams meeting, I do that meeting platform, I do that meeting platform. So I need to have an open standard. I need to be able to go into those different meeting platforms from my room. And that's why I think it's very important also to finish off that a Teams room device can utilize what we call direct guest join. That is a simple solution that we have built into our platform. Cisco WebEx has done the same, and Zoom has done the same. So if I get an invite from a Zoom or a Cisco meeting platform, the Teams room device can accept that and use it also. So we just recognize that this is a Teams meeting, or this is a Zoom meeting or a WebEx meeting, and just press join, and you will be able to join that meeting. I would say that this is for Teams meeting rooms on Windows, and we're also seeing how we can bring that to the Android platform as well. And if you're a customer or a partner who has many mixed solutions, so you have Teams rooms and you also have like Cisco rooms or other platform rooms in your environment, you can also use Cloud Video Interop, who's a license that brings a zip address to your meeting invite. So when I book a meeting, I can then have a Teams link and also a zip link, which means that any other room type that is not a Teams room can also join my Teams meetings. So there are solutions for all types of rooms to be able then to join and to be a part of other platforms as well. So with that said, Lars, I think I hand it back to you.
Thanks a lot, Robert. I mean, there is so many things coming up to Microsoft Teams, and especially also Microsoft Teams Rooms. So it's just the right place to be right now, I feel, because there's so many great things coming up. I mean, when we look back in the days when we saw Skype coming into Teams, it was like, why does it just changing the name from Skype to Teams? But it's like, it's not just changing the name, it's a completely new experience about. It's not only about video collaboration and how we work together, it's a complete collaboration platform. So it's like Teams, I feel, is just like a whole umbrella for the whole Microsoft Teams or the Microsoft 365 experience. So it's, I think it's completely changed the way that people work. I mean, at least from my experience, even though I've worked with video conference and OCS, Skype, and now Teams for like all the time I really remember I've been in the industry, it's like a completely new way of working. And like you said, this consistent experience of having Teams on my PC, on my phone, and I can join meetings everywhere we are, like the meeting we had last Friday in the car. And also then when people is asking me something when I'm on the go, I can still grab my phone and go into Microsoft Teams and find the documents and then share it from there. So it's really about working the new way and using the options there is already available in Teams. And it's not only about having meetings, but also about collaborating and making sure you have access to your document and still it's secure. When looking back, when we started with the first Skyroom systems with the Logitech Smart Dock, now moving into the rebranded called Microsoft Teams Rooms, we saw in the start it was really about small meeting rooms that we equipped with those Teams rooms, but with the new option that came with the dual display options and now also options about moving into even bigger rooms, we kind of see that area expanding. So it's not only about the huddle rooms and the small meeting rooms, we're now going into the large meeting rooms with, it could be the Teams rooms for the for the meetings and the presentations. And if you want to co-create, then you can add the Surface Hub into the meeting rooms. Another thing that I've seen coming up for the last couple of months is that you're expanding the Teams certified devices. So it's not only about creating small meeting rooms, but we can actually now create a Microsoft Teams rooms in the auditorium or in the large canteen, where we can install ceiling microphones and ceiling speakers, and we can like create this whole area of communication where it was a struggle before, but now we can actually use it or install it, and we can still rely on Teams certified devices. So a new site that I recently found was that this site, rooms.microsoft.com, this is a place where you can go and find a lot of information about Microsoft Teams Rooms and how you can install it. And the recently document that I just found is also this document, which was just released, like, I think I saw it last week, where you can actually go into a lot of information about what kind of microphone should I choose, what kind of camera should I choose, and just thinking about the whole experience of how installing the Teams rooms in different sizes of meeting rooms. And it's basically, the experience is that one size doesn't fit all. It really depends on the size of the meeting rooms and what does people actually expect to do in the meeting room. So in the coming slides, we're going to look at different scenarios that we see used with the Microsoft Teams rooms. And one of them, of course, is that when you're entering a meeting room, you have to install with the Microsoft Teams rooms. You can just go up to the Teams console and then touch the join button, and then you would be able to join the Teams meeting. Or if you're using a direct guest join, you can then join a Zoom or a Cisco WebEx meeting. But another thing that we see right now is that a lot of people have booked the meetings and they have this coming meetings booking every week. But since a lot of people is working from home, a lot of people have also forgotten to unbook the meeting rooms. So what we will then be able to do is using the proximity, since the Teams rooms have this Bluetooth beaconing, sending out a signal all the time. So when I enter my meeting room with a Teams room installed, then I would be able to see the Teams rooms from either my PC or my phone, and then I can actually use the equipment. So walking into the meeting room, normally we would then ask people to forward the meeting invite to the room, but since it's already booked, it will be rejected in exchange due to the policies. But then using the proximity, where we, instead of using our computer audio, could then go and look for the room audio and then choose the meeting room equipment instead. What then it would be is that it will then connect to the Microsoft Teams rooms using the best experience on the video and audio from that system and connecting on the PC, being ready to share the presentation in this mobile companion mode. Another thing that I see, and I realize that when we are working a lot from home, people tend to use the same equipment that they have already used or always used. So in my meeting room in the office, we still have a whiteboard installed in the meeting room. And when I'm having a meeting with someone, they walk up to the meeting room or to the whiteboard and they start inking on the whiteboard. And that is where we really feel disconnected with the call, because then we are not able to see what is actually written on the whiteboard. I know that you can point the camera on the whiteboard and then you can get this experience with a lot of reflections. And another thing is then you will be disconnected with the people that you talk to. And we know that the communication is so important. So the nonverbal communication means more than 50% of the whole communication. Then we would really lose a lot if we point the camera on the whiteboard instead of on the people that we talk with. So simply by adding additional camera to the Microsoft Teams rooms, which is called the content camera, we will then be able to install this content camera and point it at the whiteboard. And then what Microsoft Intelligence does is it's first of all framing the whiteboard and then enhancing the content that we write on the whiteboard. So even though we walk in front of the whiteboard, everybody from home would still be able to see everything which have been written on the whiteboard. So it's a really little investment, but it's giving a huge impact of including people that is working remotely. And we really need to think about including everybody when we working in this hybrid environment right now. Another thing that we can do is we could add a touchscreen to the Microsoft Teams rooms. So then using the embedded Microsoft whiteboard in the Teams rooms, there is though that the whiteboard needs to be started from either a Surface Hub or a a device, but then you can actually use the whiteboard inside Microsoft Teams. Looking at the whole ecosystem of Microsoft Teams, we really need to think about also in equipping our employees with the right team certified devices. So if you have like an open space environment or even at home, just sitting and talking into an open laptop with a lot of noise behind me, then it would really not give the best experience for the whole Teams meeting. So we need to think of first of all the audio. So give your employees the right team certified devices with a really nice headset and maybe also even a even better webcam, so that we can actually talk with each other and get the best experience out of the Microsoft Teams meetings. Another thing that we see, so we kind of have the option of installing the Teams rooms with the content camera. We can install it with a touch screen and then keep bringing the ability to use the embedded Microsoft whiteboard. But we can also use what's called coordinated meeting, and then rolling in a Surface Hub to the meeting and using the best experience from the Surface Hub with the collaboration on the whiteboard, but then using the best experience from the Teams rooms with the audio and the video. So what we are doing is then there needs to be a little bit of installation in the back from the IT admin. So on the Teams rooms, first of all, what we're doing trusted accounts. So the Teams rooms is looking at the Surface Hub and the Surface Hub is looking at the Teams rooms. So that's the first part. Is the next thing is then that we are looking at the audio. So the audio, since that the Teams rooms have the best audio and video, we set that to true, and we don't want echo in the meeting room, so we reject or do it a false on the audio on the Surface Hub. Then on the video part, since that the Teams rooms is installed mostly with the best cameras, we set that to true, and we set it to false on the Surface Hub. But we could actually make the users being able to walk up to the Surface Hub and turn the camera on during the call. And in that case, then we set that to true. So in this case, people or the users would simply go up to the Teams rooms, hit the join button, and then the Teams room start up with audio and video, and the Surface Hub will then start up and being ready to display the whiteboard, or the content that you want to share. When you disconnect on the Teams rooms, the Surface Hub will also be disconnected from the call. So from the user, it's a really simple solution, which will give the best from the Teams rooms and the Surface Hub. Another thing is about the licenses part. I know that a lot of people are still using the E3 or the E5 license, but there is a different license which is much better suited for the meeting rooms. It is called Meeting Room. So the Meeting Room license is everything that you would need for running a Teams rooms or even a Surface Hub in the meeting room. But there is also a new license called Premium. So it's building on the Teams rooms basic license, adding the Microsoft Managed Meeting Room service, and then being able to have the best experience from the Teams rooms and also the management from Microsoft. So it's kind of, if you don't have the resources yourself, or you want to make sure that your Teams rooms is up and running all the time, then you would be able to have Microsoft managing your Microsoft Teams rooms, and not only your Teams rooms, but also your peripherals, as long as they're Teams certified. So what will you actually get? You will get a complete dashboard from Microsoft, being able to look into all your meeting rooms. So if, for instance, there's a Teams rooms being unplugged or a camera being unplugged, then Microsoft is proactively managing your meeting rooms and being able to give you notifications on that this system in this meeting room is being unplugged, or the camera have been unplugged during the night, and then you could be able to go to that meeting room, being able to making sure that this meeting room is up and running for the day. You could also do everything yourself if you have the time and the people to do it. So that again, it's Teams device, Teams Admin Center, where you can use that. You might need to do some things of call quality in Power BI, but you can still do a lot of things yourself in the Teams Admin Center. And then together with the vendors of the peripherals, you will then be able to manage the cameras and the speakers and the microphones on that vendor-specific portal, and then the Teams Admin Center as well. So I want to dig into some of the features that is coming up. I know that Robert already talked about some of it, but some of the things that we see right now is that moving from the Teams rooms on Windows, looking into the Teams rooms on Android, which was before called Collabbar, there was a huge difference in the user experience. And what we are seeing right now is that Microsoft is looking into having the consistent experience on both the Android-based versions and then the Windows-based versions. So from the user perspective, looking forward, it will be the same user experience that you will then see if you're walking into a Teams rooms on Android and a Teams rooms on Windows, which from my point is really nice, because we don't want the users to think about which room they're walking into. Another thing that we're seeing is now that it will support the dual display. So a lot of the things coming out right now is actually supporting dual screen display, but also the physical HDMI ingest. If you're still using that, then you would be able to have the consistent experience about the Windows and the Android-based version. The next thing is the mobile companion that we used to do. So having the meeting already, we could then grab our phone, join the same meeting in the mobile companion mode, and then sharing the presentation. But we always needed a meeting to be there. So if we just entered a meeting and we're having an ad hoc meeting, but not in a Teams meeting, then we wasn't able to use the mobile companion mode and casting to the Teams rooms. With the new wireless cast, we will soon be able to see an option of casting from our mobile phone directly to the Teams rooms without having a meeting booked already. Another thing that we see now, which we have seen from the desktop clients, is now running out to the Teams rooms is that we have this together mode. And what I've heard from the education sector is that this is really what everybody have been looking or waiting for, since then we will trying to simulate the same experience with people in the meeting room and now teaching them remotely. So still the same experience from the teachers being able to have together mode on one screen and then a second screen for the content that they're teaching about. Another thing that we will see on the desktop client is new options of presenting. Since that we have been on video so many times, we really look into make it even more engaging. So being able to put yourself on top of your presentation using Microsoft AI. So instead of the blur background or the virtual background we can use, then we can actually add our presentation on the back, and then with a little bit of training, we can then actually also almost point at the pictures and do a more interactive presentation. Also, like Robert mentioned, looking forward, there will be so many things coming up from the Microsoft Teams rooms. So this is probably not next month coming up, but there is a lot of features coming up, and some of them is already there. So for instance, the transcription is already available. Robert talked about the speakers, or sorry, the microphones that will be able to track who's actually talking. Then I don't necessarily would need to sit and take my own notes. I will simply get the Teams rooms to get me notification and some things that I need to take action on. So with 15 minutes left, we are looking into what could then be the next step for you to take. We have Teams experience centers all over Europe, since we are primarily based or covering the Nordics. Please feel free to reach out to us if you want to dig into some of the products that we already talked about into this live event. So if you want to go and have hands-on on the products and see how they're actually working, or get even deeper knowledge about how it would work. For instance, if you want to have the coordinated meetings, then we can go and do that in our experience centers in our offices. If you're not able to come to our office, we are then also able to do remote demonstrations. So my home office is now even better equipped than my office in the real office, so I can do every demonstrations from my home office with the Surface Hub, with the Teams rooms, and even also the Teams rooms on Android would be able to be demonstrated remotely. So with that, I think we came to an end with the presentation from Robert, and now also a bit from me about how we see Microsoft Teams rooms being used. So I'm just asking the other guys if there is any questions coming up so far. They're shaking their head. I think hopefully everything was clear. So I hope you enjoyed this event. There is so much information about Microsoft Teams. There is so many things coming up for the Microsoft Teams rooms also. So it's a really great place to be right now, I feel. I think we're gonna wrap it up there since there's no question coming in. So please feel free to reach out to us. We're gonna share this recording afterwards. And Robert, thanks a lot for joining and spending the time with us. And also Thomas Eriksson, who did the producing in the background. So thanks a lot to you guys, and thanks a lot for joining this live event. See you.